Hello everyone. Welcome. It's the 2nd of January. Someone is still celebrating, and I am already doing the life. I'm just gonna see. Good. Okay. And so today I would love to talk about the lump in the throat. You know, the anxiety symptom that is one of the most common symptoms of anxiety. And we are not talking about the physiological diagnoses of the throat, right? The thyroid or anything that is not related to psychological lump in the throat. We are talking about specifically for why we feel this restricted airflow here when we get anxious. And if you ever have experienced that, I did. My first lump in the throat was when I was about probably 12 or 11. You know, the teenage years, the hormonal changes, trying to fit in. And I remember that first feeling where I wanted to say something, but I couldn't. The first yelling of the teacher at me. And I thought that I had a right to say something to protect myself, but I didn't allow myself to do that. Right, so that's we are talking about that lump in the throat when we are about to present in public, or we need to speak in a meeting, or you are arguing with someone and you want to say something, but because of the fear, you keep it in. Right. So, what are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of that anxiety that shows up in the lump in the throat? Right. Usually, it's like almost crying. You know, like almost crying, but not crying. Why that happens? When we have a lump in the throat, the cortisol, right? When the cortisol is released in a body, it restricts the airflow here. That's what happens. It's a physiological, process. And so because usually you don't need your voice. If you need to run, because cortisol is released when in a fight or flight state, you need to run. You don't need your voice. So that's why it restricts the airflow right here. So usually when you need to present, or you're in a meeting, or you are, worried about an interview, exams, anything like that. And so you kind of want to cry, but you don't cry. But you feel this lump in the throat. Sometimes when we are hurt, right? So when we're hurt, when someone hurt us, right? And we don't know what to say. So technically, lump in the throat, from the psychological point of view, is the words that were not said. Is the words that were not expressed. It's the anger that wasn't released to protect you. Okay, so you stopped it right here, right? Other reason for the lump in the throat is also when it's too much of the pressure. Sometimes people say, this life is right here. This person is right here, at the top of my throat, right? He's right here. Why do we say that? We naturally say that because that's how we feel, right? Why people say that this person is licking my throat now, right? So because we feel the pressure, for example, from someone, from the interaction with someone. That's why we feel the energy here, and that's how we express in metaphors. By the way, your unconscious mind will always talk to you in metaphors. It will always talk to you in this kind of like associations and comparisons. So, usually when we have a restricted airflow here, and we start to feel this kind of anxiety, right? This even a painful feeling right here, we might have a brain fog as well. So technically, we don't know what to say. We cannot think clearly. You've noticed that probably in interviews as well. If you're like, oh my God, I prepared everything. I kind of know what I want. But as soon as I, sit in front of people, I kind of forget everything, right? Why? Because the fear that comes with the fear of exams or fear of public speaking overrides any cognitive function. Okay, the fear will be so strong that it kind of fogs all the things that you know, your knowledge, your expertise, right? And so we start blubbering, we start to say what we didn't mean to say. That's what happens. Usually, lump in the throat, right, also is when we are recollecting some painful memories. So when you have flashbacks, when you have painful memories, when you have triggers, you might go on with your day not even realizing that on the back of your mind you have a memory from your past. Sometimes you've probably noticed that. You think about some memory and you have goosebumps on your skin. That's what it is, right? That's exactly what it is. You will feel, just like you feel goosebumps, you might feel exactly the same feeling in the lump in the throat. So flashbacks, painful memories that you can recollect them really fast, but they can create the lump in the throat. Not always you have a lump in the throat when you're like presenting or you're in a public speaking event, right? Not always. Sometimes at home, you're walking on your day and you might have that feeling, right? Usually when you have a feeling, the lump in the throat, the sensation, I recommend you to ask yourself one simple question. What am I not saying that I really need to say? What am I not expressing that I really need to express? What am I afraid to say in this situation? Example, I recently, had a lot of things to do around the house. And so everyone was kind of doing what they really wanted to do, and I was doing what I had to do. Right? So at some point, I see that no one is doing anything around the house. So I'm like starting to get angry, right? I start to get angry, like, why am I doing this? But no one is doing it. But because I don't want to hurt my loved ones, it's right here. It stucks right here. That's what's the problem. It stucks right here. So I go on with my day. I do something, I cook, whatever. It was like a Christmas day, right? And I feel this lump in the throat because I don't say what I want to say. I don't express the energy, whatever it's the anger or the frustration or some resentment, right? Or the desire to control other people's actions and behaviors. That's what I was feeling. I was feeling exactly what I didn't want to say, right? I was feeling the lump in the throat and I was anxious, right? So what are the roots and causes of the lump in the throat, right? So usually it is you couldn't protect yourself. You were a child, someone was yelling or saying something, criticizing or judging, and you wanted to say something, but the person was older, stronger, whatever, taller, right? Our parent or our caregiver. So you don't say. You just keep them in. You keep the words in. You keep the no that you wanted to say in. You keep it in. Where is it? It's here. Why it's here? Because as the emotion is born, let's just say, right? You have the thoughts, you get the information, you have the emotion. The emotion is rising up from, right? The desire to protect yourself, right? Comes from our confidence, for example, right? Personal boundaries, whatever, call it. And so it goes up and it goes right here. And you're about to express it. You say, no, you can't do that to me. Stop saying that. Whatever we would love to say, it's to someone who hurt us. Whether it was bullies in school, whether they were parents, right? But we are afraid. So we keep it in. Right? So the unexpressed desire to protect yourself. Whether it was physical, whether it was emotional, whether it was any type of abuse or any type of manipulation or control. Right? So that's the thing. Another thing is the protest. So sometimes a child, at some point, teenagers, or we start to protest maybe like in toddler years, right? Terrible 2s, terrible 3s, right? So as we protest, if we are allowed to protest, we're going to be very vocal. We're going to say that no, or I don't want to do this. You can't do this to me, whatever. But if we are not allowed to express the protest, which happens most of the time, like majority of us as kids, we were not allowed to say no. It was just not allowed. So as we are not allowed to say no, this no is here. The snow is stuck here for many, many days. It's not a one instant. It's not a one case. It's a repeated energy that gets stuck here. What happens? It accumulates here. And if it accumulates here, do you know what happens? As it accumulates here, it creates a tension. So not only the lump in the throat that we have problems with, we also have problems with our shoulders, with our neck. We have headaches. We have so many other symptoms, right? From unexpressed tension. Imagine you're like a car, right? Imagine you're like a car. You start up the car, you are still in the parking mode, and then you start to press on gas, on gas pedal. Like, what happens with the car? It starts to rage, but it doesn't go. The same happens with us. If whatever energy that came up wasn't expressed, right? It's stuck. We start to shake. By the way, shaking during anxiety is very well connected with an unexpressed needs. I need to. Good. So, what else is the root cause of the lump in the throat? It is the feeling of worthlessness. So, I will give you an example. I was in grade, I think it was like a year 3 in my university, right? Yeah. And I was passing an exam. And I didn't really know that much. I didn't really prepare. But our professor, he was a terrible professor because I don't know how people allow these people to teach others. But anyway, he definitely didn't like me. Maybe. I believe he didn't like me because everyone was passing the exam. And when my turn came, I sat right in front of him. And somehow, because of the worry, because of my lump in the throat, right? Because I was just worried because I didn't know very well the subject. This person, in 10 minutes, told me the most cruel, meanest words ever. I've never heard that kind of mean words that he told me that. I still remember that today, right? He was saying that I'm worthless, a student, that I don't know anything, I don't deserve to be at that university. He was saying that I don't know how they allowed you to enter the program, So he was saying in 10 minutes, and of course he said, you failed. He didn't even give me a chance, to say whatever I knew from those questions. And so I remember that because I was like 19 and he was like 45, right? I had this belief that you cannot talk back, even though I had a full right to protect myself. I had a full right to say, and you can't even talk to me. And I could report him, right? Because that was unacceptable. Like, I would never allow that right now. However, at that time, right, I was a good girl, right? I was afraid to stand up for myself. So in that moment, in those 10 minutes, I remember the most strongest lump in the throat I ever had in my life. Why? Because I felt so worthless. So that feeling of worthlessness, right, that could show up in a lump in the throat. Someone who offended you so much. Sometimes that could be a parent. Sometimes it could be our partner, right? Sometimes people who are like attacking us with criticism, with blame, with abuse, right? Verbal abuse. That could create in us the feeling of shutting down, right? The energy goes up and we shut down because we can't say, like, we're not allowed, like whatever. So I remember that. I remember that feeling of worthlessness definitely does show up in the lump in the throat. So sometimes you might be going on and, it's the end of the day. And you are, washing the dishes or putting the dishes away, right? And you're just, recollecting your day. And you remember a conversation at work. And I didn't stand up for myself. I should have said something. I should have, told her or him, right? Or I should have just expressed my opinion about that. But I didn't, right? And so even thinking about the previous event that didn't go the way you wanted in terms of your personal boundaries, that can create a strong lump in the throat. That can do that. So, and you might not even, you're just thinking about the day and you already have a lump in the throat. And you're like, what the heck? Like, what's happening? Why am I anxious? And so, because you don't know, the anxiety intensifies. Because now you're trying to figure out what happened, but nothing really happened. You're just putting your dishes away. But you already feel anxiety and lump in the throat and the tension and sometimes restricted chest, and tightness here. And sometimes you might feel like nauseous. Why? Because your thoughts about the past create your reality and your feelings and sensations right now, right? Another reason why we have lump in the throat is when we, for many, many years, starting early, did not have a right to express our mind, to speak our mind, to express our opinion. Certain words like shut up. Shut up, like it's not your place to talk, right? It's not your place to talk, How dare you talk to me like that? How dare you raise your voice at me, So all of these words that we have heard from our caregivers, most of them, we've heard them from our siblings or from our caregivers. Those words, we create the belief. Who am I to speak my mind? Who am I to express my opinion? I'm no one. And that, right, also could be the root cause of why you feel lump in the throat. Sometimes you might be sitting in a meeting, or on Zoom, if you have an online meeting, and you feel this lump in the throat. No one is even asking you yet to speak, and you already have it. Because you are not sure, what if I'm going to be rejected? What if I'm going to be shut down? What if I'm going to be criticized? What if I'm going to be judged? What if I'm going to be like, what if people think something bad about me? What if I'm wrong, right? So we are very doubtful, and that energy is also here in our throat. That's what happens. So the fear to speak your mind and to speak your opinion, like I don't matter. Whatever I say, it might be rejected. That fear of rejection can also show up in the lump in the throat, right? Another one is a good girl syndrome, right? So remember that good girls get very sick when they grow up. It's true, right? Every single client that came to me was a strong fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, muscle pain, central nervous desensitization, right? So all of these things, they were good people pleasers, right? So good girl syndrome, and the good girl syndrome is the decision we make as younger kids. Like, I need to please others in order to survive here. And so good girl syndrome is when we, right, don't think we matter. Someone else matters more than us. And if I'm good, if I'm really, really good, right? If I'm really, really good, I'm going to be loved. I'm going to be accepted. And I'm going to be appreciated. And so here is what the interesting thing that happens. As we do that year and year and year, people pleasing, being good people, convenient for others, what happens in the meantime? We create a huge inner conflict within ourselves. Remember, if you avoid the conflict, you create one in yourself. That's it. If you think you want to avoid conflicts with others, you are going to create one within yourself. That's it. Because when you, for example, someone told you something and you need to stand up for yourself, but you don't. At the end of the day, you're going to go home and you're going to replay that conversation over and over again, or that situation over again, creating more and more turmoil inside of you. So good girl syndrome is one of the roots and causes of the lump in the throat. Another one is the fear of abandonment. So You might think, oh, fear of abandonment, I'm going to be codependent, or I'm going to have attachment issues, or I'm going to be clingy, or needy, right? Or other thing, I'm going to be afraid of betrayal. I'm going to be, no, not always. Sometimes fear of abandonment just means that you are afraid to say something that is following your heart, right? You're afraid to say that it comes from your heart because you're afraid that someone will abandon you, that people will tell, oh, we don't like what she said. Sometimes it comes from a silent treatment. Maybe you remember those days when parents didn't talk to you for a couple of days and you felt so upset and stressed for days and days because you felt unseen, unnoticed, invisible, right? So when next time you want to say something, your mind brings you back to those exact moments, making you feel anxious, making you feel doubtful, making you feel like overthinking, right? Silent treatment is one of the most strongest abuse. Some clients that came to me and they had silent treatment from their parents, they tell me like, you know what? It's better they really gave me some physical abuse than being silent, than no reaction at all. So that affected them even more, And another one is the lump in the throat, right? Could be already a physical symptom. For example, you might have thyroid problem, or you might have, other things. However, they all started from the earlier psychological conclusions. So many, many, many years, you were suppressing yourself here, not expressing yourself. It's voice, right? We need to express it in our voice. That's why we have voice, right? And if we didn't for many, many years, that energy that accumulates here, you know that the stress is the tension in our shoulders, in our neck, right? It starts to impact, change, and restructure our tissues and our organs. It starts to make changes in the function of our organs, tissues, muscles, right? For many, many, many years. And then you find out, oh, you have a problem with your health. But no one really tells you, because no one knows where it comes from, really, right? You need to discover, to investigate that. So sometimes the root cause, right? You have like a physical symptoms already, but the root cause was that lump in the throat that you felt for many, many years. So that needs to be investigated as well. What can you do about it? I prepared for you three things. I have more, but I will teach how to overcome these problems in my anti-anxiety course in February. But for now, you can use these 3 strategies. The first one, you probably have already heard about it. It's the screaming, right? By the way, good girl syndrome, right? The people pleasers. When I ask them, have you ever screamed, like full voice scream? They said, I can't. Every time I want to raise my voice, it doesn't come up. It's like half of my voice. Right? I can't yell. I can't scream. I can't yell. You see how we can suppress our voice to the point where we actually want to scream or yell and we can't. And it doesn't have to be at anyone. No, it's good if it's not at some. It's good if you don't scream or yell at someone. You can do it by yourself in a place where no one can hear you and distract you from that, right? It could be in the car, right? But screaming and yelling does release that energy, trapped energy from your lump, from your throat. What can you do if you don't want to just scream and yell? You can listen to the music on full blast and you can sing to the music, to your favorite song. But it doesn't have to be like 30 seconds. It has to be good 15 minutes of screaming. Sometimes if I go and pick up, for example, my daughter somewhere, I will put on my favorite songs and I will just blast them. I'll just scream and yell, and of course I don't have that much of a nice musical voice. No, I don't, but it helps me to release any trapped emotion, because I do have problems with my shoulders, and there was the stress that accumulates in my neck and in my shoulders as well. So sing, put on the music. Singing is so good for releasing the lump in the throat. So good. In 15 minutes, you will feel better, for sure. Another one is breathing, but not just the regular breathing. No. One of the things is when you imagine, it's like you are taking the last breath of your life. So I want you to really practice it with me right now. So take a deep breath in, imagining like you are taking the last breath of your life, and you need to really enjoy it and embrace it. And it can be even with a sound, exhaling. When you do that, you are given the full range of an inhale, of an exhale to your lungs, which gives your body a signal that you are safe. It gives your body, as you take a full breath in, and as you breathe out, you can even make it longer. Breathe out longer, slower, right? You give your body a sign that I'm safe, I'm okay. And that could send the body, right, to help your body with the cortisol. Because cortisol is the one, right, that restricts your airflow here. So that could be really, really helpful. Another thing is a glass of cold water with ice. Sometimes just a cold water with ice. Why? Repressed anger, repressed emotion, unspoken words, repressed needs usually accumulate the energy. And our energies, is our temperature is a little bit higher. One of the feelings that actually drops our energy, could be some fear or shutting down, like the freeze mode. That can totally lower our body temperature. But anger, frustration, unmet needs, when we are just frustrated with our usual responsibilities around, for example, when we want to say something but we don't allow ourselves to do that or express ourselves, cold water can kind of cool it down. It can help with anger, it can help with a lump in the throat. So cooling down, you might know how good it feels when it's very hot in summer and you're just having that really nice, a glass of cold water, a cold drink. Right? The same happens when you take a cold drink, when you have a lump in the throat or you have anxiety. Anxious body, right, gets a little bit higher in temperature. So you cool it down. It's very simple. And of course, it's all temporary techniques. They might help for a couple of days. They might help at some point. At some point you will use them. If you use them regularly, consistently, right, it will help you. But at the same time, if you don't address the root cause, the fear that is underneath, right? If you don't address the fear of abandonment, the fear of rejection, right? The anxiety behind it, the self-expression, right? The following your heart, any type of abuse. If you don't address that, then the lump in the throat will always be there. It's not going to go away, right? It's going to go. Sometimes people start anti-anxiety medication and they start to feel better. However, the root cause is not resolved. It's just a symptom treatment. So as you treat the symptoms, right, the symptoms start to go around and they start to travel in your body somewhere else, right? So don't do that. Don't bring the problem into the worst state. You don't need that, right? So address the root cause of the symptom. And then you will be able to release the symptom and not have it. And even if the body is very habitual, if the body forms the habit, it's going to repeat it, right? Because it's so familiar. We are habitual human beings. So even if the emotion comes up and you still feel that lump in the throat, you can be so aware of why it happens, that you will be able to bounce back from that symptom much faster than you did before. And that's the core of any improvement, right? Not to eliminate the symptom of the problem altogether, but to be able to be so aware of it that it doesn't bother you anymore. You know, if I'm going to go on a stage right now, right? I'm going to feel those butterflies in my stomach. If you put me in front of 1,000 of people, of course I'm going to be anxious because it's unfamiliar. And if it's unfamiliar, I don't know the strategy yet. And I will have a lump in the throat. And I will have worry and racing thoughts. But I'm so aware of it that I will be able to do it. And eventually it's going to go away and not stop me from what I need. Or, for example, if someone attacks me or if someone tells me something that I need to protect myself, right? Yeah, maybe I will have that energy, but I will express it. And so the lump in the throat will go away eventually and not keep me in illnesses, right? And not keep me stuck in the strategies before. So I hope that helps you to understand what is that lump in the throat and how anxiety kind of fuels that symptom, right? And what you can do for yourself right now. I hope that helps. I love you all. Be healthy emotionally and physically. Bye.